to the Middle East Teaching and Learning Conference. I'm Nadine Powrie, an international education specialist. I have spent the past 5 years in Abu Dhabi and in Dubai as a lead evaluator, and most recently, I was involved in the distance learning evaluation. I'm also a certified ICF International Coach Federation in executive and leadership coach. I empower organizations to transform organizational conflicts to accelerate their business growth. So that's a little bit about what I do. So a little bit now about me. I was educated in France. I've always had a passion for learning, and those who know me will know that. So that's a little picture of when I was young. I've been a school leader, a principal twice in my career. I've managed fairly big teams and budget over 15 million pounds. And 5 years ago, I set up my own business to become an executive and leadership coach, because this is my absolute passion and I just love doing it on a daily basis. Now, I believe very strongly that people are very, very important in an organization. And I've always said, actually, that they are more important than building. And this is what people say about me when I left my headship. They thought I was driven, transparent, thoughtful, and inspiring. So it's really nice to see. And I guess the driven goes extremely well. It's fairly accurate, because I'm just passionate about what I do. I don't need to be motivated. I'm just self-motivated, and I hope that you will get that in the presentation that I am going to be doing. So the decision about today's topic, when Lisa discussed with me, came about obviously what I talk when I talk with the people who are working with me, when I coach them, because over the past few months, and you'll know that, we talked about moving from surviving to thriving. And I believe very strongly that coaching is a vehicle to create opportunities and to create opportunities to grow. Hence my topic, the power of coaching conversations to accelerate growth. So in these sessions, we are going to be looking at what makes a powerful coaching conversation. We're going to be looking at a style of leadership that I really like, which is disruptive leadership. And I hope I'm going to make you think differently, and I hope that I am going to be challenging you, and I will invite you to think during this presentation. So whenever I do a presentation, I always encourage people to take notes, and while we are busy coaching people, I think it's important to make notes about the thoughts that you're having at that particular moment in time. So here I've got just a snapshot of my NP notebook that I give to all of my clients. And this is an example of what a client of mine wrote when we were working together on managing difficult conversation. So this is just a little snapshot for you. Now, when we talk about coaching, first of all, I think it's important to say that not everybody is a coach. I'm a qualified coach. I've had to work very hard for that. I've had to pass an exam, and I'm still learning every day. And the definition of coaching can be different depending on different people. So I just thought that I would put here the Harvard Business Review definition and the ICF definition, so the International Coach Federation. They're fairly different if you can look at them. So the first one, Harvard, is all about focusing on the future. So that's great, because during COVID, we absolutely need to focus on the future and what we can do. And it also talks about fostering individual performance. And whilst I agree with it, I also think that the kind of team element is missing in it. ICF takes a very different stance here, because it talks about thought-provoking. And I absolutely love that expression, because thought-provoking means that it's about stimulating interest, it's about stimulating a discussion. It's also about challenging hypotheses, assumptions, belief, perceptions, and also perhaps the gaps that we have in our own thinking. So when we talk about coaching conversation, I thought that I would share with you the kind of topics that I have been speaking about with the leaders that are working with me, and we've done that online. And as you can see, nothing new there. Pressure, yeah, because we're all under pressure to work faster and to deliver performance. We're all accountable. And sometimes, it's quite difficult to make people accountable depending on the style of leadership that you have. We talk about driving performance because after all, we want our organizations to be at the best. And I have had the privilege to work with outstanding organizations where driving performance was at the core of what they were doing, but they wanted to do it in a very specific way. Talk a lot about the team discipline and the alignment within the team and the power of communication. So how are you communicating with people, whether it's the verbal communication and the non-verbal of communication and all of those channels of communications that you can use. But more recently, the pandemic has played a huge role of innovation accelerator and has changed the kind of topics that we have been talking about in our coaching conversations. So the impact of distance learning, for example, in UAE, has had a significant change in the way people have behaved, in their skills, in their talents, in their attitude, and this is because they've had to plan differently. The workload has been huge. The outcomes have been very different, and sometimes when we do something for the first time, we don't quite know what's going to happen. And we talk also a lot about the well-being because everybody has turned around to MS Teams and Google Classroom and Zooms, and you can name them all. But actually, we talk a lot about Zoom fatigue. So I just thought that it would be quite interesting for you to have a look at the kind of topic that I have been speaking with the leaders that I work with. So during my presentation, I want to use my NP trademark, which is evaluate, elevate, and accelerate. So it's a process that I use when I train people to develop the coaching culture in their organization, or to develop powerful coaching conversations. So in this presentation, we're going to look at them individually, and then you will see what they look like, all of them, the three of them together. So evaluate is about doing the current checks. So it's about the situation in the present time, and it's what I call the seeds of change. Evaluate is about taking off, and accelerate is about flying high. So I'm very privileged today to be able to share my trademark with you. Now, of course, COVID-19 for organizations like yours, education, schools and higher institutions, we've all been faced with changing, and in fact, it's been like changing from one day to another. And I wanted to use the work of William Bridge, who is a change consultant, and he's published a really interesting book in 1991 called Managing Transition. And I often use his work and his transition model to facilitate change and to help leaders that I work with to lead that change successfully. So when you look at that curve, and when you look at the left-hand side, so you have ending, and then in the middle you have transition zone, and then on the right-hand side you have the new beginning. I guess the question I want to ask you is, where are you currently on that curve? And having spoken to leaders very frequently who are working in UAE, they said to me, well, we were on the left-hand side, we were frustrated and confused because we didn't know, but I think now we're starting to feel the creativity and we want to innovate, and we are really ready to do that. So just, for a few seconds, think about where you are on that curve. Now, I'm a linguist, and I have a huge interest in the speaking, reading, listening, and writing skills, and that won't surprise you. And when I was looking at the work that Tony Robbins, who is a motivational coach, I'm sure you know who Tony Robbins is, he said something that really resonated with me. He said that the average person's working vocabulary consists of 2,000 words, and yet on a daily basis, we're only using between 200 to 300 words. So that's going to have a huge impact in the coaching conversations that we are going to be having. So, if you want your conversation to be powerful, you really need to think about the words that you are using, the syntax, and we'll come back to that later on. But when you are having powerful coaching conversation, you've got to think about the effective communication, because it might surprise you that it's only about words, 7% about words. It's only 38% about tone of voice and 55% about body language. And you may think, well, you're on Zoom, so we can hardly see you, Nadine. But actually, you can see my hand, a typical French that I am. I'm using my hand quite a lot. But the importance of the words, because it's only 7%, so you've got to be very specific and very forensic with the words that you are using. So you change your words, you change your life. So starting with the first of my trademark, which is evaluate. Remember, we are going to be creating powerful conversation to accelerate growth. First thing we do is we evaluate. And evaluate is about doing the checks. It's about the seeds of change. And it's about the now. So you can decide to do a SWOT analysis. There's all kinds of tests that you could do. I really love the coaching questions. So I've put some there for you to look at. Who I am and who do I want to be as a leader, because the leader that you were a few months ago may not be the leader that you want to be now. What are you wanting most? What are you fearing most? And many of my clients are saying, well, actually, I fear what I don't know, because I don't know what's going to happen in the future. Now that I've been faced with COVID, and I don't know, is there anything else that's going to happen for which I'm not prepared? So evaluating is about looking forensically at how you feel about those questions, and also about perhaps more open-ended questions, like what are you passionate about? What's holding you back? What triggers your needs for resilience, because we've all been in a situation where we've had to be very, very resilient to continue to function, because we were on survival mode. And what's your legacy as an educator? You have a legacy, so what do you want it to be? So this is all about evaluating what's happening now in your head, in the way you are thinking. But that is here we should not forget what's happening below the surface, because sometimes when we are evaluating, we're just thinking about what people can see, and actually we need to look at what people can see, the things that we can feel. It's the inside, it's the depth. So this is the depth introspection about who you are. And if you know yourself, we often say, the best leaders are those who are self-aware and they know themselves. So if you want to have powerful coaching conversations, you need to know about everything that you can see, which is actually below the surface. So you really need to go deep into those when you are asking your questions. So I'm just leaving you a few seconds for you to think about those. And another way for you to think about constructing that powerful coaching conversation is to use the de Bono hat. They're not new, they've existed for years. And I remember when I was a teacher myself, I would use them in my classroom. But actually, you can have very powerful conversation using those different colored hats, because they are making you think in a very different way depending on what you're looking at, and therefore they can influence the kind of questions that you can be asking, particularly in a period of change. And it's really important to understand how you want your colleagues and your stakeholders to think, to feel, to say, or to do, and using those hats will help you shape those powerful conversations. Now, of course, you may say, but Nadine, there are psychometric tests, so we can do psychometric tests and know people even better, and we will have even better powerful coaching conversations. Yeah, I don't disagree with you. There are powerful psychometric tests. DISC, Myers-Briggs, yes, absolutely. But I've always thought that psychometric tests are a snapshot in time, and what you are one day might not be what you are the following week. So I would just encourage you to perhaps be a little cautious about psychometric tests. I'm not saying don't use them, but I'm saying, know how to use them. So an example of powerful coaching conversation is a conversation that I had with Tarek Alami. Tarek is the regional director for the Middle East, North Africa, India for EDT, Education Development Trust. And in that conversation, we talked about the greatest asset in organization, which are people. We talked about how to motivate team. We talked about how to be a change leader. We talked about the importance of return on investment, because it's important to still measure, what you bring to the table. It's not because we are going through still a period of pandemic that we must not think about ROI. And Tarek brought something new to the table, which I absolutely really like, actually. He talked about the sixth sense, which was intuition. So how can you use your intuition in a powerful conversation? So I have podcasts, and this is one of my podcasts. I think it's number 58 that I recorded with Tarek, and that's an example for you of what is a powerful conversation. I cannot play it for now because I think it lasts 45 minutes and I would be out of time, but I would encourage you to go onto my website and to listen to it. Now, the second process in my trademark is elevate. So elevate is about taking off. And I think one of the style of leadership that I like for that is the disruptive leadership style, because it's about questioning what we're doing. So it's about questioning the process. It may be performance management. It may be, a new way of teaching and learning. It may be about the language that you are using. A lot of people during COVID-19 were really drained and down and using words that were quite negative. And if we are a leader, we need to inspire people. So it's important that we drive that inspiration and that we are being positive in the way we speak. And same with behavior. Even if you're on Zoom, you're still on stage. I mean, apparently there are 500 people watching me during that presentation. So I've just got to visualize you all thinking, okay, I have to behave in a way that is going to inspire you. And that's really, really important. And if you look at, three major organizations that have been quite disruptive during COVID, you take Netflix. Netflix has seen new subscribers membership double during the COVID period. I think their stock shares increased by 14%. Amazon has been, I think they've had their most profitable quarter during COVID. And Apple, they've had a huge demand for their iPad and Mac. So it shows that, an example of creative leadership can be actually very, very successful. Now, an example of powerful coaching conversation, using compassion is is this woman that I absolutely adore, Jacinda Ardern. She is the Prime Minister of New Zealand, and she's an example of what Elevate is. We talk about her as a standout leader. She took I think it was 25% pay cut or 20% pay cut during COVID. She has a complete transformational leadership style, and what I would say here is go and watch her on YouTube. Really, I'll encourage you to watch how she speaks. And the coaching question that I would ask you here is, what can you borrow from her? What can you take from her and that you can adapt to your own leadership style? And my third example of Elevate is a podcast that I did with Simon Harmer. Now, you probably don't know who Simon is, but Simon is the director of Thursday, and Thursday is a creative agency in Winchester, in England. And Simon and I talked during that podcast about disruptive leadership. And he said to me, disruptive leadership is when you do something different, when you follow your gut, which is exactly what Tariq Alami told me about the sixth sense and the intuition. And Simon said, zig when everyone zags. So it's about having new ideas and innovating with those new ideas to take your organization to a new place, to take your people to a different place. So in terms of the powerful coaching question on leadership and on disruptive leadership, here are they. Is there a room for disruption, and what can I disrupt? And that doesn't mean that you are going to be criticizing or reinventing everything, but it's just questions that you can ask yourself to elevate what you are currently doing to become that number one. Now, another example to elevate your leadership is to think about your stakeholders, so who they are, and to think about the strategies that you want when you are working with them, and to think about the channels of communications that you're going to be using to have a conversation with them, because if that conversation is powerful, it can become a very powerful coaching model. So I've just put here an example of planning. So this is a planning tool that I use with some of my clients, and this is quite effective because you need to think about, the stakeholders and who they are and how you want to communicate with them, and the impact that you want to have, and the words that you want to use, the ideas that you want to share with them. So I just thought that I would share that with you. And then another way to elevate your leadership and the powerful coaching conversations that you can have is when you close the gaps. So we talk a lot about doing different things, meaning creating new habits. So it may be about your behavior, it may be about the language that you are using, it may be about your emotion, where you're going to be deciding to be very positive. So you're going to be banning those negative words in your everyday today, conversations with people. You're going to be looking perhaps at establishing new relationships. I mean, I don't know about you, but for me during COVID, I've made lots of new relationships. I've met lots of new people online that I didn't know before, and with whom I've actually forged some strong relationships and some really impactful collaboration. And then here, actually, measuring the impact on performance, because at the end of the day, powerful coaching conversations are being measured always. I always say to my clients, so how are we going to measure those powerful conversations? And then the third one is about accelerating. So accelerating is about speed, agility, and velocity. So speed because you want to go faster, okay, because we haven't got much time to spare. Agility because things need to get done quicker, and velocity because you need to stay at the top. So velocity is about kind of sustaining, your top performance. So if you're having powerful coaching conversations, they need to happen all the time. It's not just on Mondays with certain teams. You need to be absolutely consistent with all of the people that you are talking to. So, of course, this is all about new habits. I think people say it takes between 21 to 30 days to have new habits. But I love that quote, actually, because it's totally true. You know, people do not decide their futures. They decide their habits, and their habits decide their futures. That's going to make you think. So I've got some questions here to accelerate those powerful coaching conversations that you will have. Now, those are the questions that I used to ask my senior leadership team when I was a principal, and I think they're still very valid. And ask them. You can even borrow them, just change them, but they should give you a fairly good ideas about what those questions to elevate the powerful conversations that you will have with people. And that may be you flying high there and doing extremely well, and also having that vision for the future. So I hope that my presentation has enabled you to explore what makes a powerful coaching conversations. I hope that I have opened a road there for you to explore about disruptive leadership, and I hope I've made you think differently and that I challenged you. So if you want to contact me, here is my email, and equally if you want to leave a testimonial on LinkedIn, because I'm on LinkedIn, please do so. Thank you very much indeed for listening to me. It's been an absolute pleasure to present to you today.